right, draft week continues here on the podcast. We are doing our annual tradition, the full mock draft. Join me if I believe this is your number 4, I want to say this is. Alan Austin is here with us. Alan, how are you?
Mike, what an exciting thing to be able to talk about once again. Let's do it.
Yeah, mock draft season is always fun because all predictions wrong, your money back.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I always have fun with this thing because, especially this year when we don't have a clear-cut consensus who number 1 is, and there's a lot of quarterbacks, and that's what was really missing last year was that, like, we had an idea about number 1. We had 50-50 on that, but the quarterbacks being back makes it more fun.
This feels like a better draft than recent memory would have you remember. Like, this just feels like a star-studded draft. Like, a lot of the guys we're going to be discussing today are going to have borderline Hall of Fame careers. I truly believe that. This feels like a stacked draft to me.
Absolutely does here. So what we did is we did the draft ahead of time, Alan and I, offline. There are only 31 picks here in the first round this year because the Miami Dolphins decided they want to get cute and tamper with Tom Brady and Sean Payton, so they lost their first-round pick. So what I did was I did the odds, Alan did the evens, with one exception here. We flip-flopped 24 and 25 so that Alan could do the Giant pick, which I think is only fair.
Yep, I wanted the Giants pick. I'm a diehard Giants fan. You get the Jets, fittingly so. So, it's odd. I will say before we get started here, it's odd to think that the Giants are in the mid-20s and not a top 10 pick for the first time in a while. And it feels pretty good, I must say.
Yeah, I gotta say, it's probably weird for you on draft night because you can probably go out, like have dinner with the family, come back home, and you still have about an hour before the Giants even get on the clock.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be late into the night this year.
Yeah, that's for sure. Here, let's get started. We're gonna go through the picks. We'll stop down some interesting ones here. I'm gonna go through the sections here. So we'll start with the top 5 here. So the first pick, I gave the Panthers C.J. Stroud from Ohio State, the quarterback. Allen took Bryce Young for the Texans from Alabama. Arizona staying at 3, Will Anderson, the edge rush from Alabama. Indianapolis Colts, number 4, Allen gives him Will Levis, the quarterback for Kentucky. And number 5, the Seattle Seahawks, Jalen Carr, defensive tackle from Georgia. We'll mention off the top here, Allen, we did not do any trades here because this is very hard to predict who does what trades. I thought that made the process even more complicated.
Yeah, we stayed away from it, which, when I do read mock drafts with trades, it kind of feels so fugazi to me that I just kind of zone out. I like keeping it with the order, and if anything comes up day of or before that, you adjust, but I'm glad we did it our way.
Yeah, so let's start at the top here. C.J. Stroud and Bryce Young, number 1, number 2. I took C.J. Stroud, number 1. I believe in the Frank Reich principle of, he likes taller quarterbacks. I feel like that's going to push him towards C.J. Stroud. I feel like it's a coin flip at this point between him and Bryce. I mean, they're going 1-2, one way or the other.
Yeah, I would go Stroud. I was a little shocked you did, but I understand the Reich likes the taller quarterback. I think he may get overruled in this instance, even though he's the new man in charge, and apparently the front office loves Young. I really think you can't go wrong either way. These are the clear 2 best quarterbacks in the draft. I am hearing, because, Stroud at 1, I am hearing mumblings that the Texans don't love any of these QBs. But at the end of the day, I can't see them not taking Bryce Young if he's sitting there at 2. I think it would be a mistake. And I know their GM's, 1 foot out the door, if you ask some people. If he doesn't take a quarterback here, it feels like a move that came from someone other than himself. I think he's got to take the quarterback, and I think the Texans take Young. And if they don't, that poor fan base. I know DeMeco Ryans loves defense, but you have another pick in the first round. You'll get a defensive player there, perhaps. I just don't see them not taking the quarterback here.
Yeah, I think you have to take a quarterback here. I mean, especially considering this franchise probably had 4 high first-round picks the last 2 years. It'd be very hard to walk him off of them and say, guys, we need a quarterback.
Yeah, they need the quarterback. I mean, Bryce Young, as is better than anything they have to offer at the moment.
Absolutely. Here, we'll also mention here that number 4, the Colts pick a quarterback here. You chose to go Will Levis over Anthony Richardson. I want to ask you why that choice is made.
Sure. I think it comes down to Jim Irsay wanting to be somewhat relevant again. I think they take the quarterback who's closer to game ready now. The guy, Will Levis, has a personality. That is someone that will attract attention. I think Irsay will love that. I think, Anthony Richardson is a blue chip prospect, but I think Levis is more game ready, and I think that will ultimately give him the edge. I'm also hearing that the Colts do like Levis, so it wouldn't be completely out of left field.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see here too. And obviously, the crazy trade person would say, like, imagine if all of a sudden, like, this pick gets traded in a package against the Colts Lamar Jackson. That'd be a lot of fun. I don't think it sounds like Baltimore wants to do that quite yet.
Yeah, that would be a lot of fun. And I think if there's a short list of teams who would do it, the Colts are certainly on it. But unfortunately, we can't project that kind of stuff, but that would be super fun.
Yeah, and I took Jalen Carter at number 5 to Seattle here, and obviously there were rumblings about the off the field stuff with Jalen Carter, why you might slip down on board. I feel like that's the kind of spot in Seattle where they love talented defensive linemen, and he's a guy I feel like they give him the building with the veterans they have on that team, he'll be in good shape. I feel like that's a good pick for Seattle to end up with him.
For sure. And I wouldn't be surprised if Pete Carroll's sitting there and sees Anthony Richardson and thinks he's got his replacement for Geno after next year. I think that's also something that looks mighty enticing to the Seahawks.
Yep, so let's go on down to the next 5 picks here, 6 to 10. The Lions, we gave Christian Gonzalez, the corner from Oregon. They traded Jeff Okudah to the Falcons recently. Number 7, I gave the Raiders Anthony Richardson, the quarterback from Florida. Number 8, the Falcons, Allen went with Miles Murphy, the edge rusher from Clemson. Number 9, the Chicago Bears, again, Peter Skoronski, the tackle from Northwestern, local product. And number 10, the Eagles, Allen gives them Bijan Robinson, the running back from Texas. Let's break down a couple of these picks here. The Anthony Richardson's the Raiders pick, the one I made here. I do think this is an interesting spot because Richardson's a guy who seems to have a ton of talent. I know I saw on ESPN, like, BPI football, like, power index thing that basically said, like, he has an 80% chance of busting, which is really absurd, or he's going to play it down. I think you wind up in a situation where, like, he can go somewhere, he can sit behind a veteran and have a chance to learn the NFL game, sort of like what happened with Patrick Mahomes. And Raiders signed Jimmy Garoppolo, so they could afford to do that.
Yeah, he's, to me, the latest, the most recent comparison that is so obvious is Trey Lance. Somebody who didn't start a ton of games at college, showed an immense amount of potential, and obviously it's a little too soon to call Trey Lance a bust, but that project is taking longer than expected. I think whoever takes Richardson needs to have patience.
Yeah, and I do feel bad for Richardson if he goes to Josh McDaniels, who's not showing a great track record developing his own quarterbacks.
No, honestly, I can see them taking it, but I don't personally think it's a solid fit for him in his development.
Yeah, let's go to the other interesting pick in this section here. You gave the Eagles Bijan Robinson, the running back from Texas, who most NFL teams do not take running backs this high anymore because they figure it's more of a luxury position here. But I agree with you. I think this is an exception in the rule. I think the Eagles will be very smart to get him here.
It's an exception to the rule. I think they also have 2 first-rounders. They're coming off a season where they did very well. They're playing with house money in terms of, what they can get away with, the risks they can take. And Bijan Robinson, who is, to me, by far the most talented running back and, quite frankly, one of the most 5 talented players in this whole draft, you can take him at 10 here, get away with it, still have another pick, and you'll instantly have a star running back. For a team that is probably going to be favored to visit the Super Bowl yet again, you give Jalen Hurts that running back option. Miles Sanders is not Bijan Robinson, so that's going to improve from last year. I just think this is a chance and an excuse to do something like this and not catch any heat for it and have your team be better for it. So I think it's a no-brainer, and I'll honestly be shocked if they don't do it, although I can see why the argument against, but I just think this is a perfect opportunity for a franchise like the Eagles to make a move like this in this moment.
Plus, imagine that Eagle offense. You add Robinson to their existing running backs, to A.J. Brown, to Devontae Smith, to Dallas Goedert. How are you stopping the Eagles?
You can't. That's why I think it's a no-brainer.
Yeah. I do think here, if the Eagles don't take him here, I think a lot of these teams who, like, have multiple first-round picks and are, like, a piece or two away from making a big contention run, I think should be all over him. Like, if he doesn't get there here, I'll be watching Detroit at 18. I'll be watching the Vikings, honestly, could be a good fit there. I would watch a couple of teams down here. Buffalo, if they get in the mix that far. Like, there's a lot of places that could use it, Bijan Robinson.
Yep, and I think the one that he fits best with is the one we mentioned, the Eagles. So as much as I do not care for that move, and I hope it doesn't happen, my unbiased take is that would be an excellent choice for both sides.
Yeah, so now we'll go to our next 5 picks on the board here. We're going to go with the Tennessee Titans, number 11, getting them Paris Johnson, the offensive tackle out of Ohio State. Remember, they moved off of left tackle in the offseason. The Texans' second pick, Allen gives them Tyree Wilson, the edge rusher from Texas Tech. Jet pick at 13, gave them Broderick Jones, the offensive tackle out of Georgia. Patriot pick 14, Allen gave them the first receiver on the board, Jackson Smith and Jigba from Ohio State. And 15th pick, Green Bay Packers. I gave them Brian Branch, the safety from Alabama here. I'll start with the Jet pick here. And we know in all likelihood this pick is not going in Aaron Rodgers trade. That still has not happened as of this recording time. But I do think this is a team that has questions along the offensive line. Dwayne Brown is going to play left tackle this year. He's 37. Mekhi Becton's played one game in 2 years. He's a fourth rounder last year. You get a chance to get a guy like Broderick Jones who can slide into one slot right away. I feel like it's a good choice. You got to do it.
Yeah, I like the move for them. The Jets are not in a position to take best player on the board. They have to take what fits their needs. Because honestly, once they get the Rodgers trade done, they're a playoff team, and you've got to fill the holes on a playoff team. You're not just stacking the roster and sorting it out later. You're plugging holes, and that's the position the Jets are in now. And Jones would be a nice piece.
Yeah, I do feel like that one. If the tackles go off the board here, I would also lost defensive linemen. I do have needs at defensive tackle. They wouldn't be that surprised if a guy like Kalijah Cansey or Brian Bressie is the pick for them if all three tackles are gone.
I agree.
All right. Your pick here, interesting one here, the Patriot pick at 14, Jackson Smith and Jigba. Bill Belichick usually does not go receivers in the first round here, so what made you break the trend here?
So what made me break the trend here is I think they are in a desperate need to figure out their quarterback situation. Whether it's going to be Zappy, whether it's going to be Mac Jones, and you've got a chance to get one of the more talented top three receivers that we've seen. We've had some really good receiver drafts. There are a couple here that are really solid choices. I think they're going to get a weapon for their offense. I think Smith and Jigba fits their gameplay the most of all of them. I think he will be a nice, solid choice. And I think the Patriots need to do something a little different than they have been doing because the formula is not working right now. So I think they've got to go out and get an offensive weapon. And I think they will probably pick him if they are going to pick a receiver. So a little bit of a bold prediction, if you will, but I saw it as a fit. I think it would be a smart move.
Yeah, I know my guest on the podcast this week, Bill Bender, also loves Jack Smith and Jigba. I think he's going to be the best receiver in the class. So New England pulls this off. This would be very good. But I could also then going in the corner route because it's a very stacked class. They do have a need in the secondary.
I can see that as well.
All right. Next up, you'll go down to 16 to 20 here. 16, the Washington Commanders. Allen gave them Devin Witherspoon, speaking of the corner from Illinois. Pittsburgh Steelers, a legacy pick for me. Joey Porter Jr., the corner from Penn State. The Detroit Lions, their second first-round pick. Allen gave them Brian Bressie, the defensive tackle from Clemson. Number 19, Tampa Bay Buccaneers gave them Lucas Van Ness, the edge rusher from Iowa. And number 20, the Seattle Seahawks. Allen's second pick for them gave them Hendon Hooker, the quarterback from Tennessee. I'm going to start with the Joey Porter Jr. pick here. And Steeler fans would love his obviously Joey Porter, beloved Steeler back in the day. They have a need in the secondary here. And this would be a lot of fun to see like a second-generation Steeler fit here.
Yeah, I mean, to me, this is the most foregone conclusion of the draft is Joey Porter going to the Steelers. It feels like the most natural fit. And we've kind of felt that way with the Steelers in recent years. Like Pickett felt like a Steeler. Porter feels like a Steeler. And I think this will fall in suit and it'll be a nice local kid doing the thing. Like it'll be fun.
Yeah, I think the one upset for that apple card would be I think Belichick with the wild card here because I think Belichick always respected Joey Porter. He might take a chance on the bloodline if he needs a secondary player.
Very so. It would feel like a stealing from the Steelers, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, for sure. And no number 20 here. The Seahawks, you mentioned earlier, they might be looking for a quarterback because you don't know if you buy Geno Smith long term here. Hendon Hooker coming off the ACL injury, a guy I like in this class, a potential sleeper here. You think he's going to go in round one?
I think all five of these quarterbacks are a lock to go in round one. I think Hooker is the third most talented quarterback of the group. I think the injury hurts him, but it doesn't destroy him. And honestly, if the Seahawks, I honestly think if Richardson's sitting there at 5, they'll take him. But if they don't, this is the next best option. He needs a year to fully recover and get used to the NFL. Geno's there. It's almost a match made in heaven. And I'm kind of shocked you didn't take him for Tampa Bay at 19. I could also see that as a potential fit down the road.
Yeah, I think with Tampa Bay right now, I think their mindset is like we're going to try and like win with what we have left. We're going to fill needs because the NFC South is still a very well division, even with Derek Carr down in New Orleans here. So like they need help along the defensive line. Lucas Van Ness does that here. Plus, I feel like they're committed to if we can fix Baker or Kyle Trask, see what we have in him. I think like they might view next year's class as more attractive. Say, we'll wait 1 year before we go deep in the quarterback pond.
That's fair.
All right. Next up here, 21 to 25 here. Chargers, I gave them Jordan Addison, the wide receiver of USC, another weapon, Justin Herbert. Another wide receiver here from Allen to the Ravens, Quentin Johnson, wide receiver of TCU. Don't know who's starting the ball yet. We'll see there. The Vikings, I gave them Deontay Banks, cornerback Maryland. They need a secondary presence on defense badly. Jaguars, I made this pick. I gave them Michael Mayer, the tight end of Notre Dame. Good two tight end set here. And Allen at 25 gave the Giants Zay Flowers, the wideout from Boston College. So why Zay Flowers?
So I got to be honest with you, I was torn on this one. I don't love Zay Flowers. I think they're pretty gung ho on receiver. You know, you hear you hear other names floated around. It's just Zay Flowers is not a guy I personally love. He drops a lot of balls. He's coming from Boston College, not a really high-powered program. But when you look at what's available, Giants need a receiver and they need some linemen. And, you know, there are talks of them being interested in John Michael Schultz, but I just don't see them taking a center with that pick value-wise. I think they're going to snatch up one of the receivers, whether it's Jalen Hyatt, whether it's Zay Flowers. Honestly, I'd rather have any one of the other three, Addison, Johnson, or Smith and Jigba. But I think Flowers is going to be sitting there, and I think they're going to need to go with it. So we shall see. I don't love the pick for them, but I think it might be where they go. And I'm interested to hear what you think about it.
I think it's an interesting idea for the Giants. Obviously, you need more weapons for Daniel Jones. I mean, they did get Darren Waller in the trade, which is great, but you need receivers in this league. And I do think, like, taking one here is not a bad call, especially, like, if this is a spot where there's, like, a big run receivers like we have in here, may feel like we may not get one we want that second round. Might as well just grab a guy we like right now.
Yeah, and I apologize. I said Schultz. I meant Schmitz, yeah. John Michael Schmitz. And, you know, it would also be enticing to see an Osiris Torrance sitting there as a potential option at the guard spot at 25. But I think receiver is it's what my gut is saying. But if they did get an Osiris or a Schmitz, it's not the end of the world. I just think value-wise, they go receiver.
Yeah, so we'll finish up with the last six picks of the draft. Remember, again, no 32nd pick, because only 31 because the Dolphins shenanigans here. Allen gave the Cowboys Nolan Smith, the linebacker from Georgia. I gave the Bills the aforementioned Osiris Torrance, the guard from Florida. The Bengals take DeJuan Jones, offensive tackle from Ohio State. I gave the Saints Kalijah Kancey, defensive tackle from Pittsburgh. The Eagles take Antonio Johnson, a safety from Texas A&M. I gave the Chauncey Gardner-Johnson replacement. And last but not least, I gave the Chiefs Darnell Wright, offensive tackle from Tennessee. So let's start with the Cowboy pick here. Nolan Smith, why did you go that direction?
So I just think the Cowboys at this spot at 26 are going to look for freak athletes. And that's what, you know, Nolan Smith is coming out of Georgia. The guy can line up at edge. He can line up at linebacker. He'd be a beautiful pairing with Micah Parsons. You know, he can cover tight ends. His pass rush needs work, so he's not necessarily going to be a super viable option yet there, but he can definitely stop the run. He can play a couple positions, and he can keep up with tight ends because he's got elite speed for the position. I think they're just going to see a defensive freak like Smith and want to pair him with Parsons. So I think that's too good to pass up, and I think they go with Nolan Smith.
Yeah, I see your argument there. I just wonder with how bad our struggles were offensively last year. I know they made a trade for Brandon Cooks. I could see Jerry Jones saying, I need a playmaker, and if Bijan Robinson is there, I think for sure he's going to be a Cowboy. We'll be shocked as a tight end in the mix here also. They lost Dalton Schultz in free agency.
Yeah, I could see the tight end route as well. I just think at that point it might be best player available, or it might be what do we like in the moment? What does our gut say? Jerry can go either way.
Yeah, absolutely here. And I'll throw my two more picks out here I'll mention real quick that I made on the board here. Kalijah Kancey from Pittsburgh, defensive tackle. I know, like, obviously, the comparisons are made to Aaron Donald, like smaller guy, like explosive burst, going to the same school here. But the Saints need help, like a lot of plays here. I think this would be a good fit to add to their defense.
Yeah, it would be. Good call.
Yeah. And last but not least here, Kansas City Chiefs Darnell Wright, the offensive tackle from Tennessee. Like, obviously, they chose not to pay the Orlando Brown. They let him go to Cincinnati. They brought in Jawan Taylor from Jacksonville. Asking him to move to left tackle is not a sure thing, so taking another guy here might not be a bad idea. Put him on the right side, develop him.
I agree, and I heard some rumors that they were linked to a couple receivers in this year's draft. But with Mahomes, Kelsey, like with that crew, I think you could find a late round receiver and play him up a bit rather than spend one in the first round. So I like the pick of the tackle.
All right, so that's our mock draft, and we will see if we have any of these right, whether it's team, player, spot. We'll figure that out after the draft. But Alan, thanks for all the time. Really appreciate it. People want to follow you on social media. How can they do that?
Sure. Yep. Best place is Twitter at Allen, ALLEN _Austin_. Thanks for having me, Mike. It's been a pleasure, and I'm very excited for this draft.
Absolutely. We'll be a lot chaos in draft night too. Now that we are recording on the day of the blue check purge on Twitter, all of the fake insiders are going to be coming out in forces.
Oh, absolutely. It's going to be the Wild West more so than it even has been.
Absolutely, Alan. Enjoy the draft.
You as well, Mike. Thank you.